There are moments in life that appear so ordinary that we almost ignore them. A quiet afternoon, a routine day, a phone resting silently on a table. Nothing in that moment seems remarkable. Nothing suggests that history, your personal history, is about to turn a corner. Yet the mysterious thing about destiny is that it rarely announces itself with trumpets. It slips quietly into the room when you least expect it. And sometimes it arrives in the simplest form imaginable. A phone call. You might think that great turning points in life must look dramatic. We imagine earthquakes, thunder, or some grand revelation written across the sky. But the truth is far more subtle. Destiny often whispers before it shouts. It moves through the unnoticed corners of life, waiting for the precise moment when everything aligns. And then, without warning, something small becomes something monumental. Consider how many lives have been changed by a single message, a single conversation, a single unexpected contact. One call can open a door you did not know existed. One voice on the other end can redirect the course of years you thought were already decided. What seemed fixed suddenly becomes fluid. What seemed impossible suddenly stands before you, like a path waiting to be walked. But here is the deeper mystery. Such moments are rarely accidents. We live in a world where chance appears to rule many events, yet there are times when coincidence feels far too precise to be random. You receive a call from someone you had just been thinking about. An opportunity arrives the very moment you were about to give up. A connection is formed exactly when your strength was fading. These moments carry a strange weight, as though something beyond our understanding has been quietly arranging the pieces long before we noticed the board. There is a profound truth hidden in these sudden shifts. Destiny often waits until you are ready, not until you are comfortable. Many people spend years in preparation without realizing it. They think they are simply enduring delays, facing disappointments, or wandering through seasons of silence. Yet what they cannot see is that these seasons are shaping them. Every challenge is carving out space for something greater. Every quiet day is strengthening the foundation beneath an unseen future. Then one day the call comes. It might be an opportunity. It might be a conversation that reveals a path you had never considered. It might be someone speaking words that awaken something long dormant inside you. Whatever form it takes, the effect is undeniable. Something shifts. The direction of your life begins to bend toward a future you had only glimpsed in distant imagination. And the remarkable thing is that the call often comes when you least expect it. You may feel forgotten. You may feel as though your efforts have gone unnoticed. Perhaps you have spent long unnoticed. Perhaps you have spent long periods believing that your story was meant to remain ordinary, confined to the predictable patterns of daily life. Yet destiny has a peculiar habit of waiting until our expectations grow quiet before revealing its next move. It is almost as though the silence itself is part of the preparation. When nothing seems to be happening, something deeper is often unfolding beneath the surface. Patience is being formed. Perspective is being sharpened. The heart is learning lessons that success alone could never teach. And when the moment finally arrives, when the phone rings, when the unexpected voice enters your life, you are no longer the person you once were. You are ready. This is the strange and beautiful paradox of destiny. The moment that changes everything usually looks small at first. A simple notification, a brief conversation, a request that seems ordinary, yet hidden inside that moment is the power to redirect an entire life. History is filled with such turning points. A meeting that creates a movement, a conversation that sparks a transformation, a message that begins a journey no one could have predicted. But perhaps the most important realization is this. Those moments are not reserved for extraordinary people alone. They are woven into the lives of ordinary individuals, who continue moving forward even when the road feels uncertain. They belong to those who endure quiet seasons without losing their willingness to listen. They belong to those who have learned that purpose often approaches gently before it reveals its full magnitude. Somewhere, at some unexpected moment, the silence breaks. The phone rings, and in that brief, unremarkable sound, the entire direction of a life begins to change. There are moments in life that seem so ordinary that we almost overlook them entirely. A quiet day unfolds just like any other, filled with familiar routines and predictable patterns. Nothing appears extraordinary. Nothing suggests that anything significant is about to happen. The room is still, the world outside continues with its usual rhythm, and everything feels comfortably unchanged. In these kinds of moments, people rarely expect anything remarkable to occur. Yet history, both personal and collective, often begins its most profound transformations in exactly these unnoticed spaces. Human beings tend to imagine that destiny must arrive with some grand display. We expect life-altering events to appear dramatically, with clear signs and undeniable signals that something monumental has begun. We imagine loud announcements, visible turning points, or powerful experiences that feel unmistakably significant from the very beginning, but reality often contradicts this. Expectation, the most meaningful shifts, rarely arrive with fanfare. Instead, they appear quietly, slipping into the flow of everyday life, without drawing attention to themselves. A simple moment can carry more weight than we realize. Something as ordinary as a phone resting silently on a table may appear insignificant. It is an object we see every day, an instrument for routine communication, something so common that it barely attracts notice. Yet within that quiet device lies the potential to connect two lives, two opportunities, or two paths that were never meant to remain separate. The silence of that phone may seem unimportant, but hidden within that stillness is the possibility that everything is about to change. It is fascinating how life can shift through something so small. A single ring breaks the silence, and suddenly the ordinary moment becomes extraordinary. Before the call, nothing felt different. The room looked the same, the day felt the same, and your thoughts followed their usual patterns. But the instant the phone begins to ring, something shifts. There is a subtle awareness that this interruption, though simple, might carry something unexpected with it. Many people dismiss such moments as mere coincidence. They assume that calls are just calls, messages are just messages, and conversations are simply part of the routine exchange of daily life. But when we look closely at the stories of transformation, both in history and in personal lives, we begin to notice a pattern. Again and again, the turning points begin with something remarkably small. A brief conversation introduces an idea that changes someone's direction. A simple invitation opens the door to a future that was never imagined before. A short message reconnects people whose paths were meant to cross again. The quiet nature of these moments is what makes them so powerful. If destiny always announced itself loudly, people would prepare for it, analyze it, and perhaps even resist it. But when change arrives quietly, it enters life in a way that feels natural, almost effortless. One conversation flows into another. One opportunity leads to the next. Before long, a path begins to unfold that was invisible only days or weeks before. There is something deeply mysterious about how these moments occur. Often they appear precisely when someone is not searching for them. A person may have been living in routine for months or years, believing that nothing significant was on the horizon. They may have accepted that their life would continue in the same direction indefinitely. Yet the unexpected has a way of entering life when certainty begins to feel permanent. The ringing of a phone is such a simple sound, yet it represents connection, possibility, and movement. It is a signal that somewhere someone has chosen to reach out. It is a bridge between two worlds that may not have intersected otherwise. What begins as a brief exchange of words can become the starting point of a journey that alters everything that follows. In the quiet space before that call is answered, an entire future waits unseen. The person holding the phone does not yet know what will be said, what opportunity might appear, or what new direction might be revealed. At that moment, life still appears exactly the same as it did before the phone rang. But hidden within that single connection is the potential for change that stretches far beyond what anyone in that moment could fully understand. The remarkable truth about life is that the greatest shifts often begin without warning. No sign announces them ahead of time. No signal explains their importance before they occur. They emerge naturally from the quiet flow of ordinary days. One moment everything feels familiar, predictable, and steady. The next moment something small interrupts the routine, and the future begins to move in an entirely different direction. People often spend years waiting for clear signs that something significant is about to happen in their lives. They look for dramatic moments or powerful experiences that will mark the beginning of their transformation. Yet the truth is far simpler and far more surprising. Destiny rarely shouts. It often begins with something as quiet, as ordinary, and as easily ignored as a single phone call appearing in the middle of a normal day. Human beings often believe that the direction of their lives is determined by large, visible events. We tend to measure significance by scale. If something appears dramatic, public, or widely recognized, we assume it must carry great importance. Yet life consistently demonstrates that the opposite is often true. The greatest transformations rarely begin with spectacle. Instead, they begin quietly, in moments that seem almost too small to matter. There is something profoundly mysterious about how a single conversation can alter the entire trajectory of a person's life. Words are simple things. They are spoken every day, exchanged casually between people who may not even remember them hours later. Yet sometimes a conversation occurs that carries a weight far beyond the moment itself. A few sentences spoken at the right time can open a door that has remained invisible for years. Many people move through life believing that their future is already fixed. They assume the path ahead will resemble the path behind them. If the past has been quiet, they expect the future to remain quiet. If opportunities have been scarce, they begin to believe that opportunity itself is something meant for other people. Slowly, expectations shrink, and imagination begins to fade into routine. But life has a peculiar way of disrupting these assumptions. A single call can arrive without warning and challenge everything someone thought they understood about their future. The voice on the other end might bring news, an idea, an invitation, or a possibility that had never been considered before. What makes such moments extraordinary is not simply the information being shared, but the timing with which it appears. Timing has a strange power in human life. The same words spoken at the wrong moment may pass unnoticed, yet those very words spoken at the right moment can awaken something powerful within the listener. A person who had felt uncertain suddenly feels clarity. Someone who had grown comfortable with limitation suddenly begins to imagine expansion. What makes this phenomenon even more remarkable is that the person receiving the call often does not realize the significance of the moment right away. At first, the conversation may seem ordinary. The exchange might begin with casual greetings, familiar phrases, and polite introductions. Nothing immediately signals that this brief interaction will become a turning point. Yet within that conversation lies a seed. Seeds are small, quiet things. When placed into the soil, they appear inactive, almost lifeless. There is no visible sign that something extraordinary is about to emerge from them. But hidden within that tiny structure is the blueprint of something far greater. Given the right conditions, the seed begins to grow, slowly transforming into something that could never have been predicted from its original form. In much the same way, an unexpected conversation carries within it the potential for growth that unfolds over time. The words exchanged during those few minutes may continue echoing in the mind long after the call has ended. Ideas begin forming, possibilities begin expanding. A person may suddenly see connections where none seemed to exist before. What seemed like a simple exchange gradually reveals itself as the beginning of something larger. There is also a profound emotional shift that occurs in these moments. When people live for long periods without experiencing new opportunities, their sense of possibility begins to narrow. They stop expecting change. They begin organizing their lives around stability rather than transformation. This mindset can quietly shape how they interpret the world around them. Then, one unexpected call interrupts that pattern. Suddenly, the familiar boundaries that once defined their thinking begin to move outward. A new path appears where there once seemed to be only a wall. The future, which once felt predictable, now contains unexplored directions. The human mind responds to such moments with a mixture of curiosity and hesitation. Part of us is excited by the idea that something new is unfolding. Another part of us struggles to believe that such change could truly be meant for us. The tension between these two reactions creates a powerful inner experience, one that often marks the beginning of personal transformation. It is fascinating how often the greatest opportunities arrive disguised as simple conversations. There may be no dramatic announcement, no grand declaration that destiny has begun to shift. Instead, the moment passes quietly, leaving behind only the memory of a conversation that somehow felt different from the rest. Days later, the implications begin to unfold. A decision is made, a new connection forms. A door opens that leads to another door, and then another. Gradually, a chain of events begins to develop, each one linked to that single moment when someone chose to reach out and speak. Looking back, people often realize that the moment they once considered ordinary was actually the beginning of a completely new chapter. The conversation that seemed brief and casual had quietly rearranged the structure of their future. The voice they heard on the phone had unknowingly delivered the first step toward a destiny that had been waiting far longer than they ever realized. There are seasons in life when nothing seems to move. Days pass quietly, one after another, and the rhythm of existence becomes so familiar that it almost feels permanent. During these periods, people often begin to believe that life has settled into its final shape. The possibilities that once felt wide and open gradually narrow into predictable routines. What once felt like a journey begins to feel like repetition. Yet beneath the surface of these quiet seasons, something unseen is often taking place. Human beings have a tendency to measure progress by visible results. If something changes in front of our eyes, we recognize movement. If a new opportunity appears, we call it growth. But the most significant forms of preparation rarely occur where we can easily observe them. They unfold internally, shaping the mind, strengthening the spirit, and quietly building the capacity to carry something greater than before. Silence has a unique role in this process. When life slows down and outward excitement fades, the inner world begins to develop in ways that are not immediately obvious. A person who once relied on constant activity begins to learn patience. Someone who once sought approval from others begins to discover a quieter form of confidence. Time itself becomes a teacher, slowly refining the character of those who endure its quieter lessons. At first, these seasons can feel frustrating. People often wonder why nothing significant seems to be happening. They look at the lives of others and see movement, success, and recognition while their own path appears unchanged. Doubt begins to creep into the mind. Questions arise about purpose, direction, and whether the hopes they once carried were realistic at all. But the strange truth about preparation is that it often feels like delay. The mind struggles with this idea because it naturally prefers visible progress. We like to see clear steps forward, measurable achievements, and obvious signs that our efforts are leading somewhere meaningful. When those signs are absent, it becomes easy to assume that we are standing still. Yet stillness can be deceptive. Imagine a craftsman working carefully on a piece of wood. At first glance, the process may appear slow, almost uneventful. The craftsman sands the surface again and again, smoothing rough edges that few people would even notice. Hours pass with little visible change, but gradually the shape begins to reveal itself. What once looked like an ordinary block of material transforms into something carefully formed and ready for its final purpose. Life works in a remarkably similar way. The quiet seasons that feel empty are often shaping a person for moments that will require strength, clarity, and resilience. Experiences that once seemed meaningless begin forming a deeper understanding of the world. Challenges that once felt like obstacles slowly become lessons that strengthen judgment and perspective. Then one day, something unexpected interrupts the silence. It might begin with something as simple as a phone call, a message, or an invitation. The moment arrives without warning, quietly entering a life that had grown accustomed to waiting. At first, the opportunity may appear small, almost insignificant. It may look like nothing more than a brief conversation or a simple request. But within that moment lies a strange recognition. The person who once doubted their readiness suddenly realizes that they understand more than they thought they did. The patience developed during silent seasons allows them to stand carefully. The perspective gained through challenges allows them to see possibilities that others might overlook. The quiet strength formed through years of preparation begins to reveal its value. What once felt like delay now reveals itself as development. The remarkable thing about these moments is that they rarely arrive with clear explanations. The call comes, the conversation begins, and suddenly the person who once felt overlooked finds themselves standing at the edge of something new. The skills they quietly developed begin to find purpose. The lessons learned in solitude begin guiding decisions in ways they never anticipated. It becomes clear that nothing was wasted. Every quiet day, every moment of uncertainty, every period when progress felt invisible, was shaping the very qualities needed for the opportunity that has now appeared. The silence that once felt frustrating had been creating space for something far more significant than constant movement could have produced. People often look back on these moments with a sense of quiet amazement. They realize that the years they once considered uneventful were actually preparing them for something precise. The timing of the opportunity aligns perfectly with the person they have become. And in that realization, the ordinary story of waiting transforms into a deeper understanding of purpose, patience, and the mysterious way in which life prepares individuals for the moments that eventually change everything. There is a peculiar moment that occurs when a person begins to sense that something in their life is shifting, even before they fully understand what that shift means. It often begins quietly, with a feeling that the ordinary rhythm of things has somehow been interrupted. Nothing dramatic may have happened yet. The day may still look the same as every other day that came before it. But somewhere deep within, there is a subtle awareness that a new direction is beginning to form. Human beings are naturally cautious when facing change. The familiar patterns of life provide comfort because they are predictable. We know how to navigate them, how to respond to them, and what to expect from them. Even if those patterns are not particularly exciting, they carry a certain stability that makes them easy to live with. Change, however, introduces uncertainty, and uncertainty often creates hesitation. When an unexpected opportunity appears, it does not always arrive with complete clarity. Sometimes it arrives in fragments. A conversation suggests a possibility, but the outcome remains unknown. A message hints at a new direction, but the full path has not yet revealed itself. In these moments, the mind begins to weigh possibilities, while the heart quietly senses that something meaningful may be unfolding. This inner tension is one of the most fascinating experiences in human life. On one side, there is the part of us that wants to remain where things are safe and predictable. On the other side, there is a growing curiosity about what might exist beyond the boundaries we have grown used to. The unexpected phone call, the surprising invitation, or the sudden idea becomes the point where these two forces meet. At first, the change may appear small. A person may simply agree to explore a conversation further, or they might accept a chance to consider something new. The step seems minor, almost insignificant. Yet that single step begins to shift the direction of movement in ways that are difficult to measure in the moment. Life rarely transforms all at once. Instead, it unfolds through a series of choices that gradually build upon one another. Each decision opens the door to another decision, and each new experience reveals possibilities that were not visible before. The remarkable thing is that the entire chain of transformation often begins with one simple moment of openness. Many people fail to recognize these moments because they expect destiny to appear in a grand and unmistakable form. They imagine that the beginning of a new chapter must feel overwhelming or dramatic. But the truth is that the most important opportunities often appear quietly, disguised as ordinary situations that require nothing more than attention and willingness. The unexpected call carries this quiet power. When the voice on the other end introduces an idea, a possibility, or an invitation, something within the listener begins to awaken. The mind starts to imagine scenarios that did not exist before. Paths that once seemed closed suddenly appear reachable. Yet, alongside this excitement, often comes a sense of uncertainty. People naturally wonder whether they are ready, whether the opportunity is real, or whether they might be stepping into something beyond their ability to handle. These questions are not signs of weakness. They are natural responses to the realization that life may be expanding beyond the boundaries that once defined it. Courage does not always appear as bold action. Sometimes courage simply means allowing oneself to consider a possibility that once felt impossible. It means listening carefully to the opportunity presented and giving it the space to develop rather than dismissing it too quickly. The remarkable aspect of these moments is that they often reveal strengths people did not realize they possessed. When faced with a new direction, individuals begin drawing upon experiences they once considered unrelated. Skills developed during quiet seasons suddenly become useful. Lessons learned through past difficulties begin guiding decisions with surprising clarity. What once felt like a collection of random experiences slowly begins to form a pattern. The person realizes that their past has been preparing them in ways they never fully understood. The unexpected call becomes more than just a conversation. It becomes the doorway through which their preparation begins to find expression. In that moment, the sense of possibility grows stronger. The future no longer feels confined to the familiar structure of the past. Instead, it begins to stretch outward, offering new landscapes of opportunity and discovery. The shift may still be quiet, almost invisible to anyone observing from the outside, but internally, something significant has already begun. The mind has started to move toward a new horizon, and the life that once felt fixed has begun to reshape itself around a possibility that only moments ago did not seem to exist. There comes a moment in life when a person begins to recognize that the direction of their story is no longer the same as it once was. The shift may not be visible to everyone around them. In fact, from the outside, life may still appear calm and ordinary. The same routines may continue, the same places may be visited, and the same people may remain nearby. Yet internally, something has already begun to move. This realization often grows slowly, rather than suddenly. At first, it may appear as a simple awareness that new possibilities are emerging. The unexpected phone call, the surprising conversation, or the invitation that seems so small at the beginning, begins to reveal deeper layers of meaning. What once felt like an isolated moment starts connecting with other experiences in ways that create a new sense of direction. Human beings are remarkably reflective creatures. After encountering a moment that disrupts the ordinary flow of life, the mind naturally begins to look backward as well as forward. It starts examining past experiences through a new lens, searching for clues that might explain why this opportunity has appeared now, rather than earlier. Often, people discover something fascinating when they begin this reflection. The events of their past, which once seemed random or even frustrating, start forming a pattern that makes unexpected sense. Challenges that once felt like unnecessary hardships begin to reveal themselves as lessons. Periods of waiting that once felt empty begin to appear as preparation. The person who once questioned the purpose of those experiences begins to see how they shaped qualities that are suddenly valuable in the present moment. Patience developed during quiet seasons allows them to approach new opportunities thoughtfully. Resilience built through past disappointments gives them the courage to explore paths that might once have felt intimidating. This awareness changes the way a person views their own story. Instead of seeing life as a collection of disconnected events, they begin to see it as a progression. Each experience, even the difficult ones, contributed something important to the person they have become. The unexpected phone call that once seemed like a simple interruption now appears as a key moment within a much larger narrative. There is something deeply empowering about this realization. When people begin to recognize that their past has been shaping them intentionally, they start to approach the future with greater confidence. The uncertainty that once felt overwhelming begins to feel more like exploration than risk. At the same time, this stage of transformation carries its own quiet complexity. As new opportunities unfold, individuals often feel a mixture of excitement and responsibility. The sense that something meaningful is developing brings with it the awareness that choices now carry greater significance. Decisions that once felt small begin to matter more because they influence the direction of the path ahead. Each conversation, each connection, and each step forward becomes part of a growing story that is still being written. The person who once felt like an observer of life now feels like an active participant in shaping its direction. This shift in perspective changes how people interact with the world around them. They become more attentive to moments that might once have passed unnoticed. A brief conversation may carry unexpected importance. A new connection may reveal possibilities that were not obvious at first glance. Life begins to feel more dynamic, more alive with potential. The unexpected phone call that started this chain of events remains a symbol of that transformation. It represents the moment when the ordinary rhythm of life was interrupted by something that carried greater meaning. Even if the full impact of that call has not yet unfolded, the awareness it created continues to influence how the person views the world. There is also a growing sense of responsibility toward the opportunities that have appeared. When people recognize that their lives are capable of change in ways they once thought impossible, they begin to treat those possibilities with greater care. They listen more closely, think more deeply, and move forward with a balance of curiosity and intention. This stage of life is often marked by a quiet confidence rather than dramatic excitement. The person does not necessarily feel certain about every step that lies ahead. There may still be unanswered questions and unexplored paths, yet beneath that uncertainty exists a steady awareness that something meaningful has already begun. The past has revealed its hidden lessons. The present has opened a door that was once invisible, and the future now stretches forward with possibilities that continue unfolding through every choice, every conversation, and every moment that grows from the unexpected